Hi guys, so this is the Cl.3 retest. This standard is over our circles unit, which is right before the last one we did of area, surface area, and volumes. This one was kind of a tricky one for us, which is completely okay. But let's kind of go through these problems together. That way we can figure out why we missed some and maybe some mistakes that we can catch before we do our retest, okay? So number 5 was the first one in our group for this standard. It said if a figure below has a radius of 3 centimeters, which it tells us that in the diagram, what is the length of the arc bounded by the central angle POQ, which that's the central angle 60. I gotta find that length of the arc. The arc is this guy right here. Arc is kind of like a crust. So I've got to figure out the length of the crust of this guy right there. Well, if I'm talking about length of a circle, if I want to figure out the whole thing, what formula do I find out the entire length of the crust? Well, that's circumference. So, circumference of a circle. But I only want to know a little bit. So, if I have the whole thing, I've got to either multiply it or divide it by the fraction of that circle. Like we talked about this in class before we took this. If I had a pizza sliced into 4 sections, or even sections, well, you would say your circumference, the crust of the pizza, divided by 4, because there are 4 equal sections and I only want 1 crust. Well, same thing here, but I don't know how many slices there are. I just know that there's 1 even one. Well, I gotta figure out how many even parts there are in the entire circle. Well, I know that the total degrees, the total amount is 360, but I only want 60 of that. Well, if you could reduce it, if you want 60 over 360, and our calculator will go down to 1 over 6, but you could also, either one of these is a great equation to put in. I could say the circumference divided by 6 to get only this section of it, or we can say that the length is equal to the circumference times our angle over the entire degree of our circle. We talked about this right before our interim, actually, right? To find the arc length, I want to take the circumference and multiply it by that fraction of the angle that I want. So the circumference formula, if we go back to that formula sheet that should be on our desk, the front side, I don't see a circumference formula, but when we go to the back and I look at my area and I look at my circle, I see the circumference is that second one. C stands for circumference. So we have circumference equals 2 pi times the radius. So let's put that down. 2 pi times the radius. And my central angle is 60 over 360. We just wrote that up above, actually. Let's fill in what the radius is. It tells us our radius is 3 centimeters. So 2 times pi times 3 times 60 over 360. Well, if I put this entire thing in the calculator, it gives us a kind of weird number, right? It's kind of like 3.14-ish. Well, what does 3.14 even look like? Looks like pi, right? Well, if we look at all of our answer choices, it has pi written in them, meaning all you had to do is multiply the numbers together. But 2 times 3 is 6, so we could have said 6 pi times 60 over 360. If we just multiplied 6 times 60 over 360, we would have gotten 1, which is super nice. So we'd have got 1 times pi, which is just b. Right? We know that we can see this invisible 1 out here in mathematics. There you go. So anytime we want to find a part of a circle, we always want to figure out if I need to use circumference or area and multiply it by the section I want, right? The section is just based on our angle measurements, which is super nice, okay? I'm going to skip number 6. Number 6 was kind of a hard one. Let's go down to number 7. What is the circumference of a circle that has a diameter of 9? Well, I just wrote the circumference formula up above, so hopefully we remember that. It was at 2 times pi times our radius. Well, I'm given the diameter. Well, how do I make a radius out of a diameter? Divided by 2. Beautiful. So let's say 9 divided by 2. Put that in our calculator. We should get 4.5. So let's say 2 times pi times 4.5. We put this into our calculator. What is our answer? C, 28.3 inches. Perfect. So let's go to number 8 now. It says, what is the area of a shaded section? Well, they want us to use 3.14 for pi. Just like for number 5, I want a section of a circle. It's a different type of section. It's not a section of the crust. It's the section of the whole pizza. Well, it tells us we gotta do area. It kind of tells us that in the equation. So instead of talking about the circumference times the fraction of the part I want, let's do the area. So a sector is always the area of the circle times the section I want, which is the angle times 360. So the area of a circle, we go back to that reference sheet, tells us on here. Area of a circle, the circle's right here. The A stands for area, pi times radius squared. So it's got to go back to this. Pi times radius squared. The angle that I want is that 54 degrees over 360. Our radius is 5, I believe. So let's plug in 5 for the radius. Pi times radius. Oh, I did not mean to put that. I meant to put 5 there. Radius squared times 54 over 360. They want us to use 3.14 for pi, but again, I think we should get similar answers if we use just the pi button. So we put 3.14 times 5 squared, which 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25. Multiply that by 54 over 360. Our answer should be that C answer, 11.775 inches squared, since we're talking about area. Beautiful. C would be our answer. Now the hard one, 6. 6 was definitely a tricky one in our book. Let me erase some of this, that way we have some room to write. So C says, in a circle we have a circle C, P, meaning that P is my center, my center point. We have the angle OPM as 124 degrees. So let's write that. Give us something that's not in our diagram. So let's just write 124 degrees, okay? And it says that the line segments ON and MN are tangent lines. Okay, they want us to figure out the measurement of ONM. ONM. We want to figure out that exterior angle. Well, nothing on that paper really helps us with this, so we kind of had to go back to some prior knowledge. Well, the exterior angle, I need to figure out the exterior crust angle. The wonderful thing about math, whatever this central angle is the same angle as the across circle angle, because a degree of a circle doesn't matter where you start as long as you're starting at the center and you're constantly growing. Doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is. If I'm sectioning out a piece, it'll be the same amount of degrees. Okay, so the outside of this crust is 124. 124. Well, how do I figure out the other part? Well, I know the whole thing is 360, and I know a section so far is 124, so let's just subtract those two numbers to find the other part. That's 5. That'll give me 10. 6, 3, 2. You could have also done that on your Desmos. I just don't have Desmos easily to me. 236 degrees. Okay, I don't even need this middle one right now. So if you want to, you can cross it off, X it out, whatever. Now I have my outside arcs. I've got my angle that's the closest to the angle, the exterior angle, and then the arc angle that's the furthest. If we remember back in our notes, to find the exterior angle, we have to take the two angles of the circle. So the 236, and then let me make this bigger. 124, and we have to subtract them from each other. But not only do I have to subtract them, I have to divide by 2. Okay, I know it's been really long. We should have notes back on this, so if you get stuck on it, just go look at those notes before you take that test, okay? That helps us find that exterior angle. That one was kind of hard when we had to go back to some prior knowledge, and circles were kind of hard for us, okay? So if we just plug that into the calculator, we should get that 56 degrees. Remember, if I want to find an exterior angle, we subtract the 2 arcs degrees, and we divide them by 2. So when it's outside, we subtract. When it's inside, we want to add them together. Okay, add them and divide by 2. So interior angles, we add them together, divide by 2. When it's outside the circle, we have to subtract and divide by 2. Okay, so again, that question was tricky, but again, the nice thing about our interim, you could have gotten all 3 of the other ones right and still missed that with still of 100 points. So don't stress out about it. Keep going hard. As long as you know you're getting the other 3 right, you got the same, you got the other 3. Even if we mess up on this one, we might have done a question wrong or something, then we are still getting the correct answer, okay? So don't stress out. Don't worry about it. It'll all be good. I'll talk to you later. Let me know when you are ready to get that code.